Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to the November 19th meeting of the North Jackson Rotary. Don will come with our invocation pledge and four-way test at this time.
Excuse me. If you'll bow. Eternal God, source of comfort and hope for us in daily life and giver of guidance to those who seek it. The mystery of your being overwhelms us. The intimacy of your love overshadows us. The magnitude of your mercy amazes us, and your majesty and power fill us with awe. We give thanks for your coming to us in the simplicities of life and in the midst of our sometimes chaotic existence. We are humbly grateful for your indwelling spirit whispering to us the assurance we need. We thank you now for this food and all material blessings we enjoy. Bind us closer in fellowship with you and with each other. Amen. Amen. You now join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for the things that Rotarians think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. And at this time, Don will do do we have any visiting Rotarians? Okay. Visiting Rotarians, please stand. Okay, come on. Okay.
We have a visiting Rotarian today, Ray Leno. Stand, please. Ray's a member of the Jackson Club. We're happy to have him here today. I'll keep going. We also have birthdays and anniversaries. I'll do that, and then you can go around because we do have guests today too. We have a couple of birthdays this week. David Martin will celebrate his birthday on Sunday, the 22nd, and Joe Dove will celebrate a birthday on Monday, November 23rd. We have no members celebrating wedding anniversaries this week. We have one membership anniversary. Sharon Simmons will roll over 7 years as a Rotarian on Friday, November the 20th. Let's give our birthday folks and membership anniversaries, Sharon, let's give them a round of applause.
Okay, let's go back, and we have some visitors today, Rotarians with guests. So please stand and introduce your guest.
I've got my good friend, Rashad Johnson, with us today.
Any other Rotarians with guests?
Jenny Price is my guest. Jenny, stand up, and then let her make it.
Okay, all right, you come make your announcement.
Hello. It's so good to be back with everybody. It's been a while, I think like year and a half since I stepped back as a member. Took a step back. As most of y'all know, my husband and I started a real estate brokerage, and we have been all hands on deck. We also had that COVID caboose, who's now 4, and so just had to take a step back and focus on small business and family life, but did want to come in today and let everybody know about the Banner Hall open house that we have coming up. As part of our real estate brokerage, we are managing commercial properties. And one of our managements is Banner Hall. And so I'm sure a lot of you have heard all the buzz around Banner Hall and the new shops that are coming in. And there's one more concept that we're hoping to get in there in 2025. They're just kind of slow to move. But the organic wine store, I know a lot of you have a lot of wine drinkers in the room. Wine store will be opening hopefully next week. We're waiting for the city to approve her business license. She was supposed to do a soft opening last week, so we're just waiting on the city to approve that. But kind of excitement, we are starting a holiday open house that we'll try to start doing annually. I have put schedules on everybody's table, so please take one with you. There's a lot of really fun stuff in the morning for the kiddos. We will have Santa, and we will also have kids crafts, story time at Lemuria. We're going to have book signings with Wyatt Waters will be there, Ken Murphy will be there, Anthony Thaxton, and then for the adults and the wine connoisseurs, we will have the wine tasting in the afternoon. So Lemuria will be open and doing wine tasting, and you will be able to buy bottles and drink them in the atrium. So she'll have cups and wine openers available for you to take out, and we'll have live holiday music. So please come join us. It's Small Business Saturday. Retail took a hit this year, and so we're really trying businesses have a great holiday season, so we'd appreciate your support. I think that's all I got. Thank you. At 2 o'clock.
Thanks, Jenny. Sounds like a lot of fun. So Don has a Polio Foundation announcement at this time.
Yeah, I have two announcements, but I do have one about the foundation. First of all, if you got an email this week, it says, or I saw one that said that November is Rotary Foundation Month. So we got to run and start on a good November with the results of our fundraising for polio eradication. The official number that went in the bank from the polio jug was $156, and our In Polio Now matching gift promotion, the gifts to be matched in that promotion were $1,985. So that means that for polio eradication, the club raised $2,141 just in the month of October through that special promotion. So everybody give yourself a hand. If you did or didn't have the sign-up sheet for the club holiday party that'll be held on the 17th of December at the Jackson Yacht Club from 6 to 9, next week, you will, if you've signed up, you'll see that I've rewritten your names because I've got one with the correct date actually printed on my printer. I failed to catch it and bring it with me. But anyway, be sure and get that date on your calendar, and we hope that you'll be able to attend the club's holiday party. So anyway, and we'll get out emails. It's not going to sneak up on you. So thank you.
Thank you, Don. Now Bruce will come and introduce our program for today.
Thank you, Lori. I'd like to introduce Joshua Tom. He is the legal director at the ACLU of Mississippi and a Jackson, Mississippi resident. He descends from the Chinese American community in the Mississippi Delta. Originally, he's from Memphis, Tennessee. He studied English literature and economics at Vanderbilt and law at Boston University. He practiced corporate litigation in New York before moving to Mississippi to practice civil rights law. At the ACLU of Mississippi, he has litigated cases on the environment, justice, policing, voting rights, and the First Amendment, among others. He's the captain of a bowling team, hosts a monthly poker game, which I can relate to since I have a son-in-law who plays poker for a living, and co-facilitates the Southern Salon in Jackson, which has brought people together for the past 45 months to engage in discourse. Past topics have included the future, taxes, education, and heroes, hierarchy, and friendship. Welcome, Joshua Tom.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. As Bruce just mentioned, my name is Joshua Tom. I'm the legal director at the ACLU of Mississippi. I tell a lot of my friends, when I first, I used to live in New York City, and when I first moved here, they would, ask, how is it working at the ACLU? And Mississippi. And I would say that probably the only organization that's less popular than the ACLU of Mississippi is Planned Parenthood. So, and it's sort of maybe the equivalent of working for the NRA in Brooklyn. So I want to talk a little bit about the ACLU. I want to talk about a little bit about my background, how I got here, and lastly about some of our work. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So the ACLU is it's a national nonprofit civil rights organization. It was founded in 1920. The ACLU has an affiliate in almost every state, including in Mississippi, which is the ACLU of Mississippi. It was founded in 1969. So we use advocacy, communications, policy, and litigation, which is what I do, to advance and protect civil rights in the state. We work on various issues, as Bruce mentioned, the criminal legal system, voting rights, environmental justice, and free speech. And so as I see it, I think the ACLU, at its broadest conception, is the mission is to make Mississippi a more free and just place. So I'm a Memphis native, born and raised. As Bruce mentioned, I descend from the Chinese American community in the Mississippi Delta. My dad is on the Mississippi side. He grew up in a town called Arcola. And my mom is from the Arkansas side. She grew up in a town called Helena. So at its peak in the 70s, the Chinese community in the Delta had about 2,500 people. My mom was one of 5 and my dad was one of 6. Now that community is drastically smaller. I currently only have 1 aunt and 1 cousin, and I think I probably have 20 first cousins who still live in the Delta. They live in Greenville now. So like a lot of the families that lived in the Delta who were Chinese, my grandparents, both sides, owned grocery stores. And the store in Arcola was called Tom's Food Store. And if you ever go to the Delta Chinese Museum in Cleveland, there's a large sign there that says Tam's Food. And so that's actually the sign from Tom's Food Store. So the Tams purchased the store from my family, kept the sign, and just painted over it. So after law school, I lived in New York City for 8 years. 6 of those I practiced corporate litigation. And if you're familiar with the movie The Big Short, it's about the mortgage-backed securities industry and the 2008 financial crisis. I graduated law school in 2008. And so, and I worked at a large New York City law firm. And I used to represent I used to represent financial institutions who had been sued for securities fraud based on their business in mortgage-backed securities. So how did I get from doing mortgage-backed securities litigation in New York City to Jackson doing civil rights law? So in New York, one of the benefits of working at a law firm in New York, this type of law firm, is that you get a nice salary. And so I was at the time and still now I liked buying clothing, and so I was bought some tailored suits. My office was in Times Square. I sat on the 42nd floor, and my normal hours were say 9 a.m. To 9 p.m. like standard, and then it could go beyond that. And so it was, say 8 p.m. I'm in my office on the 42nd floor looking south, and it's a really pretty view. You can sort of see all of Manhattan. You can see the Empire State Building. You can see the bridges. All the lights are on. The density, the buildings in Manhattan. I've got my nice suit on. Ostensibly I was, in a good spot there. But I was just thinking, I was like, this isn't it. Everything that I thought that I had wanted by going to New York, it just wasn't very fulfilling to me. And so I decided to live my values, which, as I mentioned before, if I can live for fairness and justice, that's what I want to do. And so, I moved here to Jackson 8 years ago and have been here ever since. I think I've held every position at the ACLU of Mississippi. I started as the staff attorney. I'm currently the legal director. I was formerly the interim executive director. I was the acting communications and policy director. And so, it's a great job. And I think if I were to win the lottery, I would still do this job. So, as I mentioned, the ACLU does communications, advocacy, policy, and legal work. And since I'm the legal director, I'll talk about some of our legal cases that we've done in the past and currently. So the first one's about religious liberty. So in Horn Lake, we had this guy, in other circumstances, he could be the mayor of Horn Lake. He's like family guy. He's got like 5 kids, successful businessman, but he's Muslim. And so he wanted to start a mosque in Horn Lake. And he was having, along with his whole Muslim community in North Mississippi, were having to drive to Memphis to go worship. And so he bought a piece of land on Church Road in Horn Lake. It runs east-west through South Haven, Horn Lake, etc. There's it's called Church Road. There's a lot of churches on this road. And on this road, he bought this plot of land to build a mosque for his community. It's pretty small. It's like, I think, 10,000 square feet. So, you could have a nice house at 10,000 square feet. And so he worked with an architect, and all of the planning, whether the road, the development of it, quote, met or exceeded all of the requirements for the Horn Lake Planning Commission. But once it got out that a mosque was going to be built in Horn Lake, there was a sizable part of the community who opposed that. And so they would go to the Planning Commission meetings, express their disapproval of that. And the Planning Commission actually denied his permit, even though he should have gotten it, based on, quote, majority rules. So he appealed that to the Board of Aldermen. There was also a lot of community engagement at the Board of Aldermen meetings. Normally these are like, nobody goes to these meetings, but these meetings, there was a lot of people there, and they didn't want a mosque built in their community. One of the Board of Aldermen, who has since either retired or lost, at the meeting, you can actually watch it on Facebook, said, if you let them build it, they will come, so we need to stop it before it gets here. So they denied his ability to build this mosque. So we ended up suing over that. It's pretty clear religious discrimination. We filed a lawsuit in federal court. Judge Michael Mills, and for any lawyers, y'all will recognize how unusual this is. Within 1 hour of filing the complaint, all we did was file a complaint. Within 1 hour, Judge Mills put an order on the docket that said, if these allegations in this complaint are true, this is extremely disturbing, and I would encourage the city to settle. And so, we ended up getting damages for our client, all the money he spent having to go through this extra permitting process, et cetera. We got some attorney's fees, and, now he has a permit to build a mosque, and he broke ground several years ago. On environmental justice, this has to do with when you're granting a permit that may impact waters of the state. It's very detailed regulatory stuff. I'm going to keep it much more general. But before you can build something that may impact waters of the state, you have to get certain permits through the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality. And they granted a permit to the Gulfport port to put a military installation in a community. It's called North Gulfport. It's a historical black community in Gulfport. And when they did that, they neither publicly disclosed nor studied how thousands of tons of explosives, which may be stored at this site, military site, would potentially impact the waters of the state. And so we, sued, or we actually picked this up from appeal because it was first at the permit board, then at the circuit court, and then it was on appeal to the appellate courts. This went to the Mississippi Court of Appeals, where we faced a very skeptical panel. We lost there and then appealed it to the Supreme Court and lost there as well. But I do think it's important, and we do think it's important, that when you have permits like that, particularly for a military installation that has explosives, that all of the regulatory requirements are followed, that public disclosure is provided about what's going to happen at the site, and also studies done about how this permitted use will impact this community. So lastly, I'll talk about two more cases. So one, y'all may have heard about the Department of Justice. It has what's known as pattern and practice investigations, and they look into police departments. And there's only 12 pattern and practice investigations in the entire country. 2 of them are actually in Mississippi. One was in about Rankin County. Everybody's heard about the goon squad, so that's one pattern and practice investigation. And then the second one, maybe less known, it's in this small delta town in Holmes County. It's called Lexington. And so Lexington got a new police chief in 2021, a man named Sam Dobbins. And as soon as he became the police chief, there was large numbers of complaints that were coming to us and other organizations about how the Lexington Police Department was engaging in policing in this town. This town is tiny. It's probably 1,500 people. A lot of complaints about blanketing the town with roadblocks, being stopped and arrested for no reason, excessive force, being jailed and being required to pay some amount of cash before you could get out of jail. And it wasn't a bond. It was it's not clear what these cash payments are, but it was if you want to get out of jail, you have to give me this X amount of money in cash. And so we ended up filing 2 lawsuits on behalf of people who had been caught up in this policing practices that were just well overboard. Obviously policing is very important. It's also important that people's rights, civil rights, be respected. In Lexington, the balance had gone off. The Department of Justice had recently, in September, issued a report after a year-long investigation finding that Lexington had engaged in a wide variety of unconstitutional behavior, including stopping people without probable cause, charging them with as many charges as they could think of, regardless of the facts of the law, and arresting people, putting them in jail, and requiring them to pay these cash funds. As soon as the cash would be paid, sort of like a get-out-of-jail bail thing, but they were using that to just say they would mark people as guilty. They would mark people as had pled guilty when they paid this cash amount to get out of jail. Their revenue went from around $10,000 per month to $200,000 per month, based on the policing. So lastly, I'm going to talk about redistricting cases. So after each census, redistricting happens, and that's at the congressional level for the State House of Representatives, and it happens at the state level for the State House and the State Senate. It should happen as well for judicial districts. The Mississippi Supreme Court is an elected body. It has 9 justices. Despite being almost 40% black, the Mississippi Supreme Court only has 1 black justice, and there's actually only been 4 in the history of the Supreme Court having been elected, and never more than 1 at a time. And so, just based on simple math, you would think that with 40% of the population, it's reasonable to think that you would have potentially more than one black preferred candidate. And the reason that is, or at least that we allege that is because the lines that are used to elect Supreme Court justices are drawn in such a way that dilutes the voting strength of black Mississippians, which is a violation of the Voting Rights Act. And the lines that elect the Mississippi Supreme Court haven't been changed since 1987, which we already had this trial. It was in the Northern District of Mississippi before Judge Aycock. This trial happened in this summer, and we're still waiting on a decision from Judge Aycock. So a similar thing about how important these lines are, and this is not related to Mississippi, and it happens. I think it happened in Maryland and it happened in Wisconsin, but I think Wisconsin is about 50-50 Republican and Democrat, but the state legislature drew the lines in such a way that the state house has 2/3 Republicans. And so that's an example of how you can draw lines to favor or disfavor certain voting groups. And I think it's Maryland may have done the same thing, but in favor of Democrats. So that's a couple of the cases that we've done. We also have a wide variety of other types of cases outside of religious liberty, environmental justice, criminal justice, and voting rights. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any comments. Sure.
Do you prioritize anything, or do you just, as things come along, react to those that more egregious than others, or do you have emphasis? I assume you have like a board of directors or something that they direct you.
That's correct. So the board of directors is more of a they are not really involved in the programmatic work. And I actually hear that one of our prior board presidents is Abram Orlansky, who I understand relatives are here. But the board does not direct any of our programmatic work, but we do have certain focuses. One is criminal justice, voting rights. We have an entire project on LGBTQ rights. So we have certain focuses that we're always working on. But for example, this Horn Lake case, we don't have a focus on, say, religious liberty, but that was such an egregious example that we thought that we worked on it.
And at times, this is sort of a target-rich environment.
Well, I think that people say that a lot. I think that across the country, this organization, I think, is important across the country. You'll have examples of these kind of things happen all over the place. There's a question over here.
Yeah, do you anticipate being involved in immigration cases?
So if people remember in 2019, they had one of the largest workplace, this is under the Trump administration, one of the largest workplace raids of the chicken plants. I think it was like several hundred people, like 600 people or something like that, were arrested at work and put into the immigration detention system. Some stayed, some were deported. I know there was, because it happened, it was sort of like a surgical strike. All of a sudden it was like boom, and they got all of these people. When that happened, there was children who went to kindergarten, and when they were on the curb, at the end of the day, their parents were gone, and the parents were gone for years, and some are still gone. And so the Trump administration has promised to do the same thing at a wide scale. So if and when that does happen, we will work on that as well.
I think y'all have done stuff with religion in schools. Is that correct? And my question is,
Sure.
Are you trying to get all religion out of the schools, or just make sure all religions are treated equal?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've done anything in religion in schools since I've been here, or the organization has. I'd have to go back and look. I will say that the ACLU, as writ large, does do that. Like, for example, in Louisiana, recently passed a law, I think it was maybe this year, that mandated that you have, I think it was the 10 Commandments in every classroom. And the ACLU was part of that lawsuit to try to strike that law down. So the ACLU does, the First Amendment says that there is no official religion in America, and that anybody's free to practice whatever religion they want, just like our client in Horn Lake, but that forcing a certain religion or forcing a certain belief on people is not appropriate, and that's the ACLU's position.
You said a little bit about this, but I don't really understand it. How do you typically get involved in litigation? I mean, does somebody's lawyer come to you? Are you looking for? I mean, are you a friend of the court? How do you get? I mean, how do you choose? Is a good question. But how do you initially get involved? You just go and file something to join the case? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so it happens, and it could be that people reach out to us all the time. We probably get 100 people to reach out to us each month. So it could be, that's actually how the Lexington cases came in. People reached out to us, and we started looking into it. It could also be something that we specifically want to get involved in, and so we'll start investigating. And based on our investigations, we'll find potential clients that way. So it's both. Go ahead.
You funded by just legal fees or contributions, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit, so all of the funding of the organization is based on private donations. It also does, although it's for our particular organization, it's much less funded by legal fees. Some ACLU affiliates, I understand, have a large percentage of their budget is funded by legal fees.
You're descended from the large Chinese population in the Delta.
That's right.
Where'd they all go?
So I can speak to my family specifically. So my mom has 5 siblings, and my dad has 4 siblings. And they moved to, some actually still live in Mississippi, in Greenville. But several moved to California, some moved to Florida, some live in Texas. I grew up in Memphis, so some are in Tennessee. I think some of our relatives live in New Jersey. So it's sort of,
They just
dispersed, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you see the Delta now. Whenever I would drive through Arcola, I used to drive up to Little Rock occasionally, and there's a way that you can go straight through Arcola. And that, I think, is a drive that should be required for all Americans, because it is pretty eye-opening about how impoverished that little town is.
Do you think we've lost so many people like that because of the lack of economic opportunity in this state? This is just an opinion question.
I hope that, I have seen, I think it was Auditor White, maybe he did something on the brain drain. And so what I personally think it is, it could be economics, it could be opportunity, it could be, largest city in Mississippi is Jackson. It's like 160,000 people. Maybe people want to live in bigger cities, any number of things. Yeah, but I think that's an important issue for Mississippi. Any other questions?
Thank you for coming today. I enjoyed your presentation. We'd like to give you this Wyatt Waters Rotary mug.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Please stand. Thank you all for coming today. Let's adjourn with our service above.